If you're like us, you define too much of your personality based off of your favorite Taylor Swift album, so to further encourage that behavior, here are books we would recommend for each era. A few weeks ago, we went to the Eras tour.
Oh my god, best night of my life.
And we had to recover a bit, because originally we made the movie video that you should go watch, where we recommended, Connie led that one. We recommended a movie for each Taylor Swift era.
Yep, 22 movies.
Yeah, we said we would follow up immediately with the book one, but I think we needed to just sit in our feelings for a while and process what we had witnessed. Before we get into the books that we're going to recommend, I also wanted to just say thank you for everyone who has subscribed. A lot of people have been commenting.
Yeah.
Some of you have been messaging me on Instagram, which is actually really fun.
Yeah. That's adorable.
So that's really fun and I love it. Let's have good conversations about books and movies. That's my happy place. That's your happy place too.
Teaser for later into the
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
We'll talk a bit about the concert at the end, but let's get into the important part. In the last video, we did use like our vinyls as props for each album. I don't want to set all that up again. I had to rip all my vinyls out of the sleeves, so that's not happening. You can go watch the other video if you want to enjoy that.
Instead, we ripped all the books off bookshelves for this one.
There's like gaps.
There's gaps in our bookshelves. Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to Debut Era, the very neglected era from the Eras tour.
Yeah, we didn't get even any surprise songs from the debut era, so it was just nothing.
No. And it's like where we start with Taylor Swift too.
Yeah.
For Debut Era, I would recommend Blade of Secrets, which is a YA duology series. And it's about this 18-year-old girl who has this skill where she can craft swords and blades and weapons and such and imbue any power into the blade that she wishes as she's like kind of crafting it. Why I would recommend this for Debut Era is that the protagonist in this book is very unique. And she suffers from like severe social anxiety. And I think that encompasses Taylor Swift in her debut era, where it's just like a socially anxious, socially kind of awkward girl who takes on the world.
Cool. As you'll see in the video, I have very basic recommendations because I've only recently started reading again. So that's not like I've never read that. That sounds fun. I also went the socially awkward teenager route. I'm recommending The Perks of Being a Wallflower for debut era. I think many people have read this already. It's about someone just starting off high school. He's very socially awkward and like feels like an outsider because it is called The Perks of Being a Wallflower, so he's very much a wallflower that's just observing other people. He's trying to deal with his own trauma from the past as well, and I think for the reasons Jenny has already talked about, like this is just very much gives off the same atmosphere and themes as debut era.
I would agree with that. When I think of Perks of Being a Wallflower, I also think about Logan Lerman's golden era.
Yeah.
Moving into Fearless era. The book I would recommend is so popular this year, I don't even know how much I have to describe it. I would recommend Just for the Summer, which is Abby Jimenez's new rom-com, contemporary romance book. For those who don't know, the premise of Just for the Summer is essentially there's a girl who is cursed and every man she dates will go on to meet their soulmate right after dating her, and then she encounters online this other guy who has the same issue where the girls that he dates will go on then to meet their soulmates after they date. So I think very quickly they come into an agreement that they would just try dating each other so that the next person they meet might be their true love. The reason I would recommend this for Fearless is that there's actually like, I thought it would be a lot more comedic than it was, and it actually ended up delving into a lot more serious topics, and I think that's a good transition for Taylor Swift in terms of writing from like teenage love into, you know, heartbreak and Boo Joe Jonas and all of that. So I think there's like a funny sequence of exes, but there's also a lot of self-discovery, handling like familial, you know, relationships and trauma, and it's honestly like the book itself is more serious than Fearless, but I think it still gives off the similar vibes of transitioning on from like childhood into like adulthood and almost like, what do you even call it, like nurturing your inner child a bit.
Yep, that's on my TBR. Love a good rom-com. I also have like a book with a romantic element to it. It's called Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. It has a very long title. I have to take a peek.
I love this book.
It is so wholesome. The book follows two, I think, Mexican-American teenagers coming of age in America. It has first love, like familial elements, certain aspects of trauma, and also just like the experience of being a person of color, I think, in a more Western society and growing up that way. I just really love it. Like, similar to the book you were talking about, it has a bit more, like, some themes are more mature, but it's still at its heart like a coming of age story. And also, like, off Fearless, I find the song The Best Day really wholesome, like where Taylor Swift talks about her parents and her family, and I think there's a lot of like familial love in this book as well. So overall, it just really reminds me of Fearless.
I love how Fearless reminds us of trauma, because we got traumatized by Joe Jonas's like 5-minute breakup call.
She destroyed him at her concert. We can talk more about it later.
Yeah. Now we move into Speak Now, Princess Era. I love her Speak Now dress. Anyway, I would recommend this book. It gives no title. It's a mystery book, but it's part of my folio collection. It is Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. Northanger Abbey is very much a coming of age story, where I think I talked about it a bit in my all-time favorite books video, so I'm not going to spend too long on it. But essentially, you got the main character. She is new into debuting in society, and she's very naive, very like rose-colored glasses, rose-colored lenses, whatever it is. And she just sees the good in everyone, is so excited to make friends in across society, go to these like gatherings, meet like eligible suitors or whatever, and she slowly discovers that not everyone is nice to you all the time. So really reminiscent again. I feel like this is the whole beginning of Taylor Swift's music, but that's really the strongest reason why. Like, this is just so encompassing of teenage and girlhood and your first, I guess, hurt in friendship, in love, whatever, and just the naivety behind it. I think, no offense, Taylor, we were all naive at one point. Northanger Abbey.
And we all dealt with men of the same caliber.
Yes, we did.
Okay. I'm excited for this recommendation. It's called Half a Soul.
I haven't read that yet.
And so I was thinking a romantasy would be good for Speak Now, because it does have that fantastical element.
Yes.
With like Enchanted and with Long Live, like I think both those songs kind of give the fantasy vibes. So this is a book about Dora. Half her soul was stolen by a fairy lord. She's like lost some of her emotions and ability to express certain emotions, and like sometimes when she like acts a certain way, she doesn't realize it's embarrassing, so that's why she like sometimes acts in an embarrassing way. Some people say that her character might be a way to explore like neurodivergence, but like I haven't really read too much into it. But I thought it was very interesting. And it's also like a love story about her and the magician in the town. It's really romantic and cute, and I think Taylor like is finding some more confidence in her Speak Now era, like maturing a little bit. And I think Dora, the main character in here, has to learn self-love and how to be confident in herself in this book. So I think it matches perfectly.
I'll have to read it. Moving into Red, again I'm going back to the contemporary romance genre, and I'm recommending Funny Story by Emily Henry.
Oh my god, love that book.
Another big book from the year, so it's not anything new. For those who don't know, Funny Story starts off when the main girl and the main guy both go through their separate breakups, and they both get, like, how do I describe this? The girl's boyfriend, fiance, leaves her for his best friend. And then the main guy's girlfriend also leaves him for her best friend. And they are actually each other's best friends. So basically, like, their significant others leave the characters for each other. And then because they're stuck in this weird situation, the two of them end up as roommates, because they have nowhere left to go. I love Funny Story as a Red representation because you have that perfect mix of toxic relationships, which is a big part of Red, but you also have this like whirlwind of like self-discovery, love, like familial topics, all of that. I think it's a perfect balance of like really beautiful romantic songs and stories versus really toxic and red flag situations. So that's Red to me.
I love that recommendation, and there will be more Emily Henry coming our way.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a recommendation for Red that I think like no matter what era it was gonna pop up in this video, because it just reminds me of Taylor in general.
Okay.
So it's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Very popular book, but for a good reason. I think it's amazing. And it's just like about a female celebrity who is in the public eye, gets scrutinized by the media and everyone else, and you know, she has 7 husbands, so people judge her for the amount of relationships that she goes through and fails at. Have we heard that before in real life? Have you seen that before? Yeah, so not only does it fit with like Taylor in general, but I think it fits the Red era particularly well. I think the song The Lucky One explores like stardom and like the pressures that female celebrities go through, and also because there's 7 husbands, there's a ton of breakups, and there's also a very amazing romance at the heart of this book. So nice. That's why I chose it for Red.
1989.
Woo!
I had a hard time finding a book for 1989, I'm not gonna lie. But then once this one came to me, it felt so obvious. So I'm recommending Rules of Civility by Maura Tells. This book starts on New Year's Eve, which seems so Taylor-coded. That's a Reputation song, New Year's Day. It literally fits 1989 perfectly because the first song on the album is Welcome to New York. And this is about 2 women. Specifically, it does focus around the first, like the main woman in the story. And it's about her trying to make her way into the upper societies of Manhattan.
Oh, that's fun.
So, so she's basically in New Year's Eve, she's in a jazz bar, and she meets this banker guy called Tinker Gray. And it basically starts this whirlwind of her meeting a lot of people from the upper societies of New York, trying to work her way into this circle of people, all while dealing with, you know, navigating a very strong but complicated friendship, along with this mysterious and ambiguous relationship with this guy called Tinker Gray. It's very messy. Like, it just gives Taylor Swift and Harry Styles taking like fake relationship photos at the zoo or park or whatever it was with a child.
With the stylist
child. So it just gives like Taylor trying to be almost like, you know, like a supermodel era and like the it girl and all of that. So that's what this feels like in more of a literary fiction standpoint.
That sounds like right up my alley. Yeah. So this is a book recommendation I actually haven't fully finished. I read like a lot of it at a bookstore in London when we were chilling. Yes. We were both tired and like just like I think we took a break at a bookstore for a few hours. But anyways, immediately when I thought 1989, I remembered this book and how I need to continue it and like buy it and continue it. So it's called Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Malors. And instantly the first scene out of the book is like the meet cute between the 2 main characters, Cleo and Frankenstein. Sorry, not Frankenstein. Frank, just Frank. Cleo and Frank. Cleo's like a 24-year-old young woman in New York, you know, partying it up, just having the time of her life. And she bumps into Frank, who's like 20 years older than her, so it's an age gap romance. And they're just like walking home from a party in the middle of the night together in New York. So very much also just the Welcome to New York vibes and like the glitz and glamour of that kind of life, which is reminds me of 1989, and I'm pretty sure the relationship is gonna end up having some unhealthy elements. Like I don't think it's a romance at the heart of the novel. I haven't gone through the whole book yet, but in general, she writes very well. The story really like captured me. I just didn't have time to buy it that day because we were making a reservation. But I definitely gonna go back for it at some point.
The vibes were there.
Yeah, the vibes were there.
Reputation. We should have coordinated more because now I'm going back to Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm recommending Malibu Rising.
Love that one
too. And speaking of London, I read it on the plane ride to London. Malibu Rising is about this surfer model girl in Hollywood, and her basically she's like going through this, I think it's a divorce with her husband, and they were otherwise like a Hollywood it couple, very famous, very everything, and in the middle of this like messy divorce and like cheating scandal and all of that, she decides to go ahead and continue throwing her crazy Hollywood annual bash, like party. This whole story takes place in this one night, sprinkled with little vignettes of flashbacks to the past and about how, you know, how she became famous, this romance, just like who she is as a celebrity, but also as a person. I think that's pretty self-explanatory because Reputation is literally just reputation in Hollywood and, you know, like fame and the dark side of fame, and just like constant critique from the public about your decisions, who you are, and like who you date and all of that.
Yeah.
It just perfectly captures what I feel like Taylor Swift was going through in the era where she was writing Reputation. And this is not a spoiler because it happens at the beginning of the book. The party literally ends with the house going up in flames. So there's nothing more accurate to me than like Reputation being that era of just like literally 1989, her trying to be a supermodel it girl, and then it all burning and collapsing on her, and she's left with like, you know, who matters in the end.
For me, I chose Cersei. It's about this overlooked figure in Greek mythology. She's kind of mistreated by the family, like wasn't seen as being like beautiful, unlike her sister. So I think she's very much just mistreated, and she ends up getting exiled to an island by Zeus, I believe, because she was suspected of being like witchy. It's just a book full of female rage, like she gets her revenge on men who wrong her and everything. So very like amazing book, especially if you like Greek mythology. Like, I think Madeline Miller did so much research into how to like best fit her story into like all the other existing Greek mythology stories. Just amazingly researched and really well written. So
I love that book. It's also my all-time favorites video, I think. Or maybe it's in my litfic recommendations. Anyway, Lover. This sounds so wrong, but there was no depth that went into my Lover recommendation. Lover era is Lover era. She was just a lover girl.
I took the same approach.
Yeah. So I just chose a really fun romance book, and I chose Act Your Age, Eve Brown.
To read that.
I think that's been like, it's been pretty trendy in like the romance reader community, but it hasn't been like really, I don't think it's broken out beyond that too much yet. So you'd have to be in Romance Book Talk or BookTube to know this recommendation. Act Your Age, Eve Brown is about this rich girl who grew up very sheltered by her parents and her sisters. I think she's the youngest of 3 sisters, and she finally decides that she wants to go and try something for herself. So she literally just picks up and moves like just in her car and goes to find a job, which is actually hilarious. And she ends up at this like, I think it's like a bed and breakfast inn kind of thing where there's like, I don't know, the owner guy is the male love interest. I'm describing this so well. It's just fun. So I really appreciated that writing and just a unique kind of story built into the typical rom-com structure. I chose this, again, simply because it was just a very wholesome romance with some good character challenges sprinkled in. And they ended up just being a good match. Rest in peace, Joe Alwyn.
Okay, so I also chose a book of a girl being fully in her lover girl era. It's just a very cute romance. It's called The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I think I also chose it for Lover because, and I mean this in a good way, there's some like cheesy dialogue, there's some like overly whimsical elements to it, like she's a witch but she makes potions out of like moon dust and all these like really cute ingredients in my opinion. It's about a witch, Mika. She in this universe, witches tend to live in isolation because I think it helps them stay hidden better. So she's always lived a life of isolation. She gets discovered by a household that needs a tutor for their 3 young witches. So she has to like leave her life of isolation and join in on this family to tutor these kids. And it's all about like found family and raising your own self-esteem and realizing that you're fine the way you are. She meets like a grumpy librarian guy, so it's a grumpy sunshine romance, and there is some conflict in the romance, but in general it's just plain cute, you know, a lot of fluff.
Nice. So. Folklore. Our favorite. I'm gonna recommend 7 Days in June. Did I talk? I don't think I talked about this yet. Another well-known book. Honestly, we're not going through any like extremely niche books, but I think that's just the nature of like Taylor Swift appealing to the mass market. Yeah. So 7 Days in June is also a second chance romance. It follows Eva and Shane, and essentially they had like this short-lived spark of romance back in the day, and things didn't work out, shocker, and basically they meet again in the present time. Eva is a single mother at this point. She is a writer of spicy novels, and then Shane is meanwhile very like keeps to himself and is a very like award covered literary writer, I think it was. This is on the back of the cover, so I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, but essentially like where the romance lies is you figure out that both of them have been writing books about each other this whole time.
Like, what's more romantic?
Yeah, very adorable. I chose this for Folklore. One, second chance romance seems to be a big thing with, like, you know, the whole Betty, James, and what's her name? Augustina? Whatever. Storyline, and the love triangle there. even though I don't think there's an active love triangle in this one. It's just second chance of it, with mistakes being made. Folklore is also for people who need therapy. So I think there's a lot of that in this book. Eva deals with chronic pain, and I think both her and Shane have so much trauma from their childhoods. So there's a lot of that, and just like finding yourself and finding a safe space amongst all of that.
Yeah.
Just damaged but romantic.
I can vet that recommendation too.
Yes.
Speaking of needing therapy, my recommendation is Crying in H Mart.
We're so brutal with folklore.
Yeah, because literally listening to folklore is like just a very emotionally draining experience, you know?
Yeah.
So introspective. And I think what better than like a memoir? So this is Michelle Zauner's memoir.
Japanese Breakfast.
Yeah, love her music. And she goes through a lot of like grief and complicated relationships with her family and struggling as kind of like an immigrant kid as well in an American society. So I think there's like a lot of struggle in this book, but also a lot of love and happiness. I cried on the bus like 5 times reading this book. I should not. I didn't learn my lesson. I just kept reading it on the bus. So cry in public, this made me do. And I think folklore is also for the people who love a good story, because Taylor really took the storytelling perspective in that album. There's so many, like, it's like you're looking into, like, it is you looking into her life, and there's so many, like, vignettes in her life, like, little anecdotes. I think it's just, like, really fun to read.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Now Evermore. I've gone full messy for Evermore.
Okay.
And I will be recommending Down the Drain by Julia Fox.
Okay, I totally see that.
Yes. So Down the Drain is a memoir by Julia Fox, who is, I'm going to call her like a niche celebrity, because to me, she's a superstar. But I bring her up sometimes and people have no idea who she is. She is in Uncut Gems. She is a fashion icon.
You have to say that the way she says it.
A fashion icon. Maybe you know her from like, oh, Josh Safdie's Muse, you know? Mm-hmm. She published a memoir about her like kind of tell-all in her crazy past. I had no idea. And I say this like as humorous, but it's actually like not that funny. But she like lived Euphoria. Like it was...
That's insane.
Wild. She was born in Italy, grew up in New York, and she just tells this crazy like story of her past and how she became Julia Fox. I would recommend this book for Evermore because it's just so messy and it's girlies committing crimes. And there's nothing else we love more. Like, no body, no crime. Also, like, champagne problems and just, like, leaving a guy and just, like, riding off into the sunset or whatever.
Amazing.
Yeah, so, like, that's the whole vibes for me of Evermore. I know there's a lot of other, like, peaceful songs in there, but that's just what sticks with me. And I think a lot of what the book boils down to is she talks about all these crazy things, and in the end, it ends up being like a love letter to her female friendships.
Amazing. I still need to read that, but love Julia Fox, so.
Yes.
Yeah. Happy place. for Evermore.
Emily Henry.
Full stop. I made notes for this video, and my only note for this was right where you left me.
Oh my god.
Because I think that song, like when I was reading this book, I think I had like Taylor Swift playing at one point, and I was just like, this is right where you left me. So Happy Place is a second chance romance. So the main couple has broken up already before the book starts, and that's why, you know, right where you left me comes into play. So these two people who are broken up, they were in the same friend circle, and they are invited to go on like a cottage getaway, whatever you call it, but they're gonna hang out with their friends and still pretend like they're together because they don't know how to break the news to their friends. So that's just like a very high level summary of it. I think it might be my favorite Emily Henry book.
Me too.
It really had my emotions going haywire. Very much recommend.
Nice. We're almost there. Midnights. Midnights was a hard one for me. Ultimately, I chose the book Piglet, which is also recent release, also a recent litfic favorite in the online community, I think. Piglet starts as a story when the main protagonist is getting ready for her wedding with her fiance, and she finds out that he did something bad, and basically her whole world falls apart. Yeah. Part of this then leads to her finding a lot of coping comfort in cooking and in eating. A very interesting, dark and weird kind of direction to take the book, and I loved it, every second of it. This book is the definition of supporting women's rights and wrongs.
Okay.
And I think that's a big part of Midnight's too. It explores this element of like complex relationships where both parties are slightly at fault. But ultimately, the woman is still the victim because of the patriarchy.
What's new?
I'm going to refer to actual songs in this description, but it's very much giving like you're on your own kid, high infidelity, all of that. There are moments in this book where I just want to strangle all the characters. If you want to feel angry and uncomfortable, this is a book for you.
Honestly, I'm in that mood right now. What we do? That's so funny because for this book, I also made the note that this is you're on your own kid.
Nice.
Yeah. So I chose a Sally Rooney for this.
I almost thought we were going to bypass a Sally Rooney, which would be crazy for Connie.
Yeah.
She's a big Sally Rooney fan.
I love Sally Rooney. I chose her Beautiful World, Where Are You? Essentially, it's just two girls who are best friends but don't live like in the same city anymore, and they're writing, I don't know if it's emails, but they're writing letters or emails to each other throughout the book to update each other on their lives, discuss political issues and other like anything they like. It's truly just like a letter to your best friend, so anything they want to share. And at the same time, they're both going through like tumultuous relationships, or I don't even know if you could call it relationships, like situationships for some of them, and their lives are messy. So back to why it relates to Midnight's and you're on your own kid. I think Midnight's really like explores a lot of adult anxieties, to be honest. Both these characters are kind of just going through shit alone at times, because throughout the book, I think I got the impression they're both living on their own, and they're separated from each other now. They're both kind of lost. I think Midnight's gave off those similar like vibes to me. Yeah.
Totally fair.
In general, love Sally Rooney. Please read this.
I'll read it. We're there. Tortured Poets The Tortured Poets Department. Yay. I'm recommending a recent book I just finished in my autumn reading vlog, which is the first book video we published on this channel. My Dark Vanessa. We're getting really dark here now with the recommendations. Tortured Poets Department fits this book so well in my mind. I'm going to give a quick description. You can go look at the reading vlog if you want to know more. But basically this is a very empathetic storytelling of a girl who was essentially taken advantage of in her teen years by her English teacher. And it flashes between her past of her kind of affair and romance with this teacher, while also looking at her in the present time, grappling with the news coming out of his accusations, whether she should come forward even though she thinks she's like not a victim of the whole thing, and all of that. That's a very simple way of putting this story. It is super relevant to Tortured Poets Department in my mind because it's a very dark album with a lot of mature themes. I think rather than talk about the specific themes, I'm just going to go back to the songs again. But Daddy, I Love Him, Who's Afraid of Little Old Me, Guilty as Sin. It just keeps going with this kind of like romance, quote unquote romance relationship that is toxic, maybe should not be, but you end up deep within it.
For me, Torture Poets Department made me think I need to choose a dark academia book, because she even brought back like Ethan Hawke and people from the Dead Poets Society, and like her songwriting in this album is honestly like very like flowery language, like very, just reminds me of like English lit class, like you know. So The Secret History, not a like super niche pick or anything. This is like a very well-known book, but it's very much a dark academia book. It's set in a New England college, with a bunch of academics who are studying like Latin or some sort of like dying language. Like I read it so long ago, I don't remember the specifics, but there was a murder, there are problematic relationships, very mature themes, people going, honestly, like going crazy, in my opinion, like losing their damn minds, which very much gives off ttpd vibes, because I think Taylor was in her messy era when she wrote it. Yeah.
Nice. We made it.
22
books. One option somewhere for you to get started.
Yep.
Now I can debrief a bit about the concert, for absolutely nobody asked us to. I don't know. My impressions of the concert. Tortured Poets Department has gone up in its rankings because the set list just really hit for me. Even though I was so tired at that point. The concert was also so tired.
You were so tired, but Taylor was still singing and dancing.
Someone should have told me not to wear like heeled boots. because we stood for like 6 hours total, probably.
Yeah, because of merch. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So that was fun. We'll add some clips at the very end of this book because, again, nobody asked for our concert videos. But yeah, Torture Poetess Department, very special impression. But I also became a Reputation girly.
Yes.
Yes,
You saw
if
the
you
light.
know from our previous movie video, I had never listened to the full album because by the time I re-entered the fandom, Scooter Braun had bought it, so I was like, no listens for Scooter. So I'm now a Reputation girly, folklore, evermore, obviously.
Well, I liked all the eras. I was always a folklore girly, and after the concert, I still am. Like, the August performance was magical to me because she was just spinning around in her flowy dress across the stage. And for Evermore, Marjorie, surprisingly, like, I cried at that. It felt really intimate. Like, with the opera voice, like, so... for those who don't know, like, Taylor includes a clip of her grandmother, Marjorie, who's an opera singer, in the song. It sounded so cool in concert, in my opinion, to hear that voice. Those were, like, my 2 favorite performances, maybe, but all the eras were super fun. Reputation made me lose my mind. I think theatricality-wise, Reputation will always be superior. And in general, just the best concert I've been to. I hope a lot of you have been able to go and like see the Eras tour now that's coming to a close, but if not, just stream the movie on Disney Plus.
Yeah. Our acoustic set songs were Mr. Perfectly Fine and Better Than Revenge mashed up. So she hated Joe Jonas that day. And then she did State of Grace and Labyrinth mashed up, which made me like Labyrinth more than before.
It was so beautiful.
Yeah. And we already liked State of Grace, so that was easy. That was fun. Thanks for joining our little Taylor Swift sessions. Go check out our movie one if you haven't already, as if we haven't plugged that enough. If you have recommendations, let us know. This was a super fun little duology series of videos. And we'll come back with maybe some more recommendations in the mixture of like mixing different media sources with book recommendations, and that should be fun. Okay, goodbye.
Lost in the memory, August slipped away to a moment in time, 'cause it was never mine. And I can see it's twisted in bed sheets. August slipped away like a bottle of wine, 'cause it was never mine.